You guys want to buy some Chronic?
What's going on, guys? Belair here. Today we are going to talk about what will be the new look Luminosity, former Luminosity, aka RMC, aka what org is going to pick up this new look team as they made the surprising decision to move off of Cheese and bring in Chronic, which I think ultimately will be an upgrade for this team. And I want to talk through what it's going to look like for both sides, both the newly joining Chronic, who are watching from Open Qualifier 4 here against a very capable Shopify Rebellion team, and then with the incumbent duo of Magic Bear and Reddles should be expecting. So first things first, let's talk a little bit about last season. Gen G had quite possibly more pressure than any other team. Of course, we could really cut some hairs and look at it different ways. You know, Carmine Core had a ton of pressure coming in, Vitality, of course, as the previous world champions, but Gen G went from a season in which they had no expectations coming in when they first joined 2 seasons back. They end up winning a regional event and then, turning in a pretty good season. They were probably the top, if not one of the top teams in North America. They have the opportunity to make what is, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, a talent upgrade. Picking up First Killer in Nolly's place. You don't make that move because, the vibes are bad with Nolly. You don't make that move because of the, performances that you had. You make that move because you want to pick up one of the most skilled players in the world in First Killer, and you want to contend for titles. And with all of that pressure coming in, everybody was asked to kind of adopt new roles. I've talked about that quite a bit on this channel, so I won't linger. But in short, First Killer is the top dog for that team, and Appjack needed to adjust his scoring pretty dramatically around that. And look at this movement from Chronic, just finding his flow here on the defensive end. And Chronic was asked to take a pretty big step down, especially in the offensive category, being clearly the third option for them in the shooting department and not really getting a ton of opportunities. And that is a beautiful setup to apparently Jack. We've got to watch that back one more time. Look at Chronic. Has all this space, going to take it to the corner. Definitely sees that Justin's trying to pre-jump, is going to hook that just over top of him. Takes this one, doesn't have the boost to get back to it. Is just going to get the little doink pop over 2. Not the best defense in the world from Shopify, but that is pretty from Chronic. And that space that we just saw Chronic afforded to him is one of the reasons why I am excited about this trio, especially since RMC, we're going to watch a Magic Bear replay after this, but they really thrive off of space where you'll have one player just totally downfield, trying to steal boost and cut some backside demos. You'll have one kind of on the ball and then one deep. They play it really wide, and I think that space and freedom will be beneficial for Chronic. But yeah, Gen G, just to tie a bow on that, they ended the season terribly. I mean, they end up winning Open Qualifier 4, having a pretty lackluster 5 and 6, and then by their standards, an awful World Championship. So I am excited for Chronic to get a new opportunity. This is not the one that I thought, especially since it was kind of generally understood by everybody that RMC would be running it back, but they opted to give Cheese the opportunity to seek another home heading into next season, which I think will be great for him and definitely deserves a video in and of its own right. So let's talk a little bit about Luminosity here, why don't we? The Magic Bear and Reddles duo now is bringing in its third player, and this might be the one that, I think makes the most sense for them. Of course, they start out with AJ, and AJ really thrived as somebody who was on the ball, took high volume shots, and that team was pretty good, but I don't think that they necessarily got as much offensive firepower as they thought that trio would yield, and I think ultimately they wanted to get Magic Bear a little bit more involved, and that's when Cheese comes in. But as we learned over the course of last season, Magic Bear being involved isn't necessarily just as a shot taker and shot maker. Is excellent at facilitating for his teammates, being a willing passer, and a good scorer in his own right. But Cheese pretty decidedly led the team in scoring last season. And a couple of stats on that real quick. I was surprised to see that Cheese was at about 0.87 goals per game. That puts him right next to some pretty high-profile scorers. 48th on the list for Cheese last season. That's next to like Jack, LJ, Atomic with a K, and Super Locky. All people who are pretty solid goal scorers. And then much further down the list, tied for 145th place globally on the goal per game big board, were Reddles and Magic Bear, who actually tied on the season with 100 goals apiece. So they're not really lighting the world on fire from a scoring perspective. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how these teams mesh together headed into next season. So let's go ahead and hop over to our next game, and we will talk a little bit more about this move and why I think this combination is going to gel so nicely. All right, here we are. This is a replay against the Snowmen, who are now Space Station Gaming. They will be getting their own video very soon as well. Please excuse the boost sound that we're hearing. Magic Bear rocking the grass. Or what is it, just called grass? I don't really know what this boost is called, but you know, I gotta tell you, I actually think this decal is pretty clean, even though the bluster bar and the anodized, or the pearlescent rather, is not something that it's not brand new. But I don't know, there's something about the green boost here. I really like this combo. I actually might need to rock this in some ranked games. But anyways, we're getting a new setup, right? How is this team going to work? Well, let me hit you guys over the head with a couple stats real quick, and then we'll talk just some more general stuff here. So, Luminosity last season, I'll just call him Luminosity. Incredibly high demo rate, 5.96 demos per game, highest in North America by far. To give you guys a little bit of perspective on that, what is basically 6 demos per game, G2, Gen G, Shopify, SSG, none of them are even close to 5 per game, let alone the 6 that Luminosity is at. I mean, Space Station is at like 3.5 for crying out loud. The only other top team who's even close is OG. We know they like their demos. They got Com on the roster, but they were only at 4.83. So a full demo plus lead Luminosity had. That's just too much. Demos are awesome. They open up a ton of space, and that's going to be great for Chronic. This is still going to be a team who get a lot of demos. Magic Bear and Reddles do a great job of that. But Chronic has an exceptionally low demo rate, which I think is fine. I think you have a little bit of wiggle room there. You don't need that. It's like a team who is like, we take 50 layups per game. It's like, hey, that's awesome that you guys get to the rack so much, but I think you could take some more three-pointers. That's kind of how I feel about this new look with Chronic. And the space that those demos create is going to be exceptional for Chronic. I feel like he is the best, like we saw in the last game. When you get him with time and space and boost on the ball, he can do some pretty deadly stuff, especially on solo air dribbles. So I think that combination will work out pretty nicely. The other standout stat that I was looking at and comparing was Luminosity really struggled last season in the late game category. I don't know what we would call this, but 28% of their games headed to overtime, and they had a slightly losing record. They won about 44% of their overtime games. Another place they didn't really impress was in game 5s. They actually didn't have any game 7s. Maybe one. I didn't write it down. But in game 5s, they only had 9 of those, and they went 4-5. So, you know, not really lighting the world on fire in either of those. But if you're going to take such a heavy percentage of your games to overtime, you sure would like to win more of those. And on the Gen G side, of course, Chronic is not the only one who is a part of those efforts. Apparently Jack and First Killer are excellent players, but Gen G, let me find my stats here. They won 60% of their overtime games. And they were going to game fives less commonly. And let me not look away for too long, because if I do, we're going to miss Magic Bear dropping the hammer on Snowman here. Look at this. Turns off the ball cam, puts that right behind Scribbles. That was a beautiful setup there by Reddles and an excellent finish by Magic Bear. But we already talked about Luminosity not really having a standout goal scorer. I think this is going to be an excellent opportunity for Chronic to kind of show us what's what. Outside of the stats, I think the big thing that's being added here is this team obviously want to make lands, and adding a player in Chronic who has consistently not only been making lands, but winning regionals at a high clip for a long time. I think that's just an excellent person to have in your camp, right? If you're trying to prove to people that you are at that level and can keep being there, having somebody who has consistently done that, I think will do wonders for the confidence, and also just give them that edge that I think will be really important. I also think there's something to the fact that they are not just running back the same team. I sometimes get nervous about that. They're not at the same level as Vitality, and it's very anecdotal, but we saw them running it back, and it just doesn't always work out exactly how you would want. If things get a little stale, that can be a problem. So I'm glad that Luminosity changed it up, even though they were a team contending and making lands last season. The team on the other side of the pitch here in Space Station Gaming, formerly the Snowmen that are on the screen now, are going to be running it back. So we'll put my anecdotes to the test here, as Magic Bear is going to dodge that demo. But yeah, I'm excited for them to add Chronic to this roster. I think he'll be a welcome addition, and it's time for him to prove himself. I know that Chronic said in his World Championship interviews that he was taking a gap year after school in between college to focus on Rocket League, and this is an opportunity to be like, hey man, we need you to do some heavy lifting for us. You're going to get a new opportunity with some fresh faces. We need you to shine, and I think he's going to have the opportunity to do that. It kind of reminds me in some ways of like what Karl Anthony Towns is getting with the Knicks, where it's like, hey, you're getting a new, fresh look with some fresh faces around you. Let's see what you can do. And, Chronic was the clear third for Gen G. I think it's going to be not the same, but it gives me shades of like the transition that we should expect from Klay Thompson, who will more likely see his shot attempts per game drop as he moves to Dallas from Golden State, but he's going to be a much more critical part of making their offense more impactful and opening up space for Magic Bear and Reddles to work. So I'm excited about this addition. What do you guys think of this move? Do you think that this makes them a clear LAN contending team? Where would you rank them? Of course, it's kind of a tough exercise now because we still have some dominoes that are yet to fall. But let's say this team hypothetically was just being slotted into the exact same setting of North America from last season. Where would you rank them? Would you rank this team above previous Luminosity with Cheese? Definitely let me know in the comments below. Guys, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have an excellent rest of your day or evening. And until next time, guys, take it easy.